Fine.
So enjoy. It'll be fun.
Cool.
Right, hello Facebook. I think we're on Facebook. I always have to say that because I can't quite tell immediately. Hi to the folks following our Talented People Facebook page. It's lovely to see you. Um, do say hello because we'd love to know you're there. Otherwise, it's a bit weird and it's just like another of the 75 different Zooms that we've had earlier today. um, so yeah, welcome. It is our first live session of 2021. Thank you to all those people who joined us for them last year. And here we are again in lockdown. But fear not, we're still talking to you all, communicating with you via jobs and social media and live sessions. So stick with us. You'll meet some nice people. Hopefully we'll find you some work. I really hope everyone is safe and well. But yeah, this first live session of 2021 is all about the making of One Man and His Shoes, directed by Yemi Bamiro and produced by Will Thorne. So we'll be chatting to these guys in a minute. But for any of you who don't know what and who Talented People are, where have you been? We are a staffing company across lots of independent production companies in the UK and internationally as well. We help people find brilliant directors and producers, execs, developers, production management. So if we don't know you and you are one of those, make sure you email us your CV or get in touch via our website. The jobs board link is on for sending your CV is on the Talented People jobs board. Yeah, we've been running these live sessions since last March when the pandemic was in full force. The aim is just to connect you guys. It provides interesting, inspiring chat at challenging times and remind you that you're not alone. We might all be sitting in our bedrooms, gyms, places
Weird
with
joke.
Tibetan rugs on the wall, very stylish. But we are all together, and whether or not you're working, it's just nice to keep the conversation going. So, hello everyone, and yeah, welcome to our guests today. So I'm going to introduce them now. So Yemi Bamiro, hi Yemi.
Hello, Kim.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I know it's been mad home schooling, well, from my point of view, and you fielding, small people and work as well. But Yemi is a producer and director. He's been in the industry about 15 years, I think. He's directed one-off arts docs, as well as presenter-led films with the likes of Reggie Yates. His debut feature film, One Man and His Shoes, which we're talking about here, was released last April in the US?
Yeah. It was like, I think it was May, wasn't it, Will?
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
having to think then.
I
Yeah,
know,
things
I
may.
know. Yeah, I think it was last May in the US. Yeah.
Which seems like a long time ago when it's
Yeah.
only sort of feels like it's recently hit
I know.
iPlayer. But we'll come to that. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
Will Thorne. Hello, Will.
Hello.
Hello. Will is was the producer of One Man and His Shoes, but is also a writer and director. And you started out on features and commercials and music videos, didn't you?
I did, yes. Yeah.
A
That's
long
like
time ago.
another lifetime ago.
Yeah, let's not
Yeah,
talk
and
about
then
that long ago.
yeah, I sort of fell in TV, and then I've come back to where I kind of was trying to get to.
Perfect. So full circle, and then
Yeah,
and you've recently brought out a feature length drama, or was it a crime thriller called Silent Night?
yeah. It's a narrative feature. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just come out. Yeah.
amazing. So back into longer form, and enjoying it there. So thank you both for joining us. Are you all right? How are you?
Yeah, good. It's
Yeah,
just,
good. Yeah. It's still Christmas where I am.
I know, I keep looking
It's
at
a bit unlucky, but just whatever.
Well, that is bad luck, isn't
I
it?
know, but I mean, can things get any worse?
To be fair, no, that's a
Yeah.
bold move and
It
completely
is.
fine in my
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen One Man and His Shoes yet, naughty people, go and find it on iPlayer. But it is the remarkable story of Air Jordans, and it is so much more than trainers. I think it was so long ago that it's almost easy to forget, or maybe you didn't know if you're young enough to not have been around in the 80s or 90s, how hysterical people got, how revolutionary the marketing of them was. And this doc, it sort of cites the story of it via interview and archive and really, really funky graphics. So, Yemi, do you want to talk about how the project came about and when? Because this is an independent film, self-funded, and you started a long time ago. So tell us the story of how it came about.
Okay, so the story dates back to November 2012, and I remember specifically that date because it was perhaps 5 months before my 30th birthday, and I just had this thing, you know, with like directors. Like I read a lot about directors. I've always sort of like admired, you know, filmmakers, and some of all of my favorite filmmakers had made films by the time they were 30. So then I just had this thing where I started thinking about, you know, I've always wanted to make a feature, but you know, what could I tell a story about? And it was really weird. It wasn't like it just kind of a light bulb moment. I kind of, you know, pondered over it for a while. And then, I just sort of came to the conclusion that this subject matter might be interesting. And it was more kind of like a disbelief that no one had sort of like told this story before. And then I kind of sat on it for a while and just kind of thought, you know, maybe there is something out there, but there wasn't. You know, there's a few seminal sort of like documentaries about sneaker culture, but nothing specifically about, you know, brand Jordan, Nike, or the phenomenon of Air Jordan. So I think, initially the film, you know, was going to be about Air Jordan collectors. So I kind of started to make that film, and that sort of like, you know, that manifested itself in sort of like a 7-minute short film, because the idea would be to sort of like shop that around and try and get some interest in it. So it was about collectors, and it was about culture, and it was about sort of like fashion, and it was basically you know, an aspect of the film. So it had all the graphics in it, and it sort of like had like a funky soundtrack, and I pretty much like shopped that around and didn't really get anywhere. And then I think I met up with Will, and I basically said, you know, I've got this short, I've been trying to shop around, I want it to be a feature. And he was just kind of like mad enough to agree to get involved and produce it. And that is where this crazy journey sort of like started.
Well, that's a nice moment for Will to step in. And so did you know that Yemi was sort of developing this idea before you got involved?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I knew he was making a short, and you know, I'd kind of seen it, and you know, knew that looked cool, and you know, knew what Yemi was all about. I sort of knew him from the industry anyway, and would work together. And I was a bit the same. It's just, you know, I kind of always thought, well, this just sounds like a nailed-on idea. So the fact that he was kind of shopping it around, not getting anywhere, you know, obviously I felt his frustration as a friend, but you know, as a kind of producer hat on, I was thinking, well, why isn't anyone picking this up? You know, this is kind of an easy one, surely. Especially knowing no one had done it before. You know, it was kind of ripe. It was just there. And I'd actually just set up my own company, so I was kind of like, let's do it. And I'd actually met some people around that time that I felt, you know, it's like, hey, if you're not getting anywhere, why don't I come on board? I help you, and I'll put it under these people's noses. Thinking, this will just all happen, right? You know, I didn't realise, you know, years later I'd be holding the bag. So in my naivety,
is that because it took that long to kind of formulate what you wanted, or was it about access and getting interviews, or was it predominantly down to money and the fact that you guys were making this on your own time?
It was. I think it was a little. No, to be honest, it had nothing to do with the actual creative process. So like access and interviews, it never had anything to do with that. It was more, we'd never made a feature film before, a feature doc. We didn't really know, you know, like the process. And I think that, you know, we would meet people and they would sort of like be partially interested, and then we'd had conversations with them for sort of like months and months, and then like at the end of that it wouldn't really materialize to anything, and then we'd realize that we'd wasted sort of like 6 or 7 months just kind of like going back and forth and having meetings with these people. So and then you add in the fact that it's an independent production, and we sort of like self-financed it, and then you add in the fact that the whole film is set in another country, on another continent.
Yeah,
so,
a bit inconvenient, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit inconvenient. So yeah, it was a culmination of all of those factors, basically. But in terms of the creative, the interviews and the access, no, I think that's ultimately that, we always had confidence in that. And that's why we sort of like set about making the film in the way that we did, because we knew that, the interviewees and sort of like, the contributors, like the family, the mother, that was all on us. So we weren't at the mercy of anybody really in that sense. So we just had to basically find some money, get on a plane and go and start filming.
Yeah,
so,
that's quite frustrating, isn't it? I suppose what was the moment when, because you'd been talking about it for a long time, having these conversations that then didn't pan out, and then having to pick yourself back up and go, okay, what now? What was the moment where you just went, sod it, we're doing it because we can make it in X weeks and then it'll be done. Let's stop chatting to people. Let's just do it.
Yeah, because I remember it differently, but I know that you have a good sort of recollection of that moment.
Well, so Yemi like had a short film, so we had like material, and a lot of that was sort of very usable to kind of make a taster. But I suppose from the very start, say when I got on and involved with Yemi, like, here you go, here's a really cool looking short film. It's not a feature film. It's about collectors. So it's not about, 30 years of blah, 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 but it shows you a scene and it's done in a style, blah, blah, blah. And here's really, treatment that lays out the people we want to talk to, so here you go. Here's kind of both. And then I suppose 6-7 months later, Yemi's going, well, what's happening with all these people that said they loved both things that we showed them? Yeah. But, this is not going anywhere. That's when it's like, okay, how about me and you put some money in? We figure out how much is it going to cost for you to go to America for, say, 2 weeks on your, pretty much on your jacks, give you a camera, just get some interviews, come back, we'll kind of make a more rounded taster. Then we'll go back out and go fishing. That process basically happened for 6 years.
Wow.
And it got bigger and bigger, and each time it got bigger, and each time we spoke to bigger people, and the sums of money we were getting promised got bigger, and and it kind of was this stop-start thing.
And were you so you were editing it each time that you were going to get footage, coming back, making it a bit bigger, making it into a half hour, and then going again and kind of adding on?
Yeah, pretty much, like, because we all have TV jobs, like, Michael's an editor, Will's a PD, I'm a PD. So we'd sort of like do TV jobs, put some money in a pot, go and film, and I'd go to America and film, and then we'd come back, and then we'd have a few weeks in edit, and then, that process would sort of like start again. And from that edit, we'd sort of like show people, shop it around, use that to try and get more contributors sometimes, because, some of the contributors, they're quite high profile in their respective fields, and they're not just going to be in your documentary, and, if they don't know who else is in it. So we sort of like had to make these sort of like vanity reels, we sort of like called them, where, like we wanted really big contributors and we had to show them how important they were to the film. So we showed who else we had in the film talking about them and that sort of thing. So it was like, just this ongoing sort of like process.
Was there ever a point where you just thought, I've had enough with this, I'm so tired of that, can we just drop it now?
Yeah, no, there were lots of so that stuff never had to do with the creative. So it never had to do with the interviews or like actually making the film. Like making the film was a privilege. It always felt, like the thing that we were meant to be doing. I think what was really difficult was like the sucker punches from, whether it be sort of like finance falling through or just rejection from sort of like applications where you're applying for money and that stuff, like just happening constantly. And that was that was hard to take, because like everyone, if we had £1 for every time someone said, oh my God, this project's amazing, it sounds like it should be on Netflix, we would be rich. We'd be able to fund the film, because that's what everybody would tell us. And it would not just like, friends and family, it'd be like, people who were commissioners or, people who held the purse strings. They would just tell us this stuff all the time. So then it was frustrating when it got to the fact that, you know, why are we still in this position where we're kind of like just making this film like in such a rogue, independent way where all of these people have like shown an interest and told us how good our product is. So yeah, that was hard to take over and over again.
And is it almost a bit bittersweet now? Because now everyone's saying how incredible it is and how much they love it. And you think, well, yeah, we've been talking about this for 7 years and no one said that at the time. And now they are. Is that quite difficult to take? Or actually you just lapping it up because you're so pleased?
Yeah, I don't feel bittersweet at all. I think like between us, we kind of, yeah, like William Goldman, the screenwriter, he always, you know, famously said that no one knows anything. And I think that's something that we always kind of like spoke about. Like no one really knows what will work. No one knows a good idea. No one knows what will materialize, and everything's a bit of a gamble. So I don't feel bittersweet. I just kind of feel that, you know, like we worked really hard for a number of years to sort of like make the film, and it sort of come to fruition. But we always knew that we had a good idea. You know, I think that's the thing that, you know, we always maintained is that.
I think that sounds like something that people watching this will take inspiration from, and we'll loop back round to that by the end. But I feel like, you know, that is quite something to hold on to, an idea that you truly believe in and keep going with it, despite the fact that you've got to do other jobs to pay the bills, and, you know, you're getting rejected left, right and centre. You've still made something that you love, that's doing really well, and that's now been put on iPlayer. And actually, I'm aware we haven't talked about the content yet, and I'll do that next. But how did it end up on iPlayer then, guys?
How did it end up on iPlayer? We started working with the company distributor called Dartmouth Films, and they're a UK theatrical distributor mainly. And they, Christo was an exec on our, quite late on in the process. He came on as an exec, and his company, yeah, he's been around, and, you know, one of the first people that he took it to was Storyville and BBC, and he just kind of knocked on their door for quite a long time until, you know, to be honest, I think even till after it got into South by Southwest, it was still kind of like, well, I don't know, you know, they were thinking about it. And so it sort of tells you how hard it is. And going back to Yemi's point, I don't think we ever kidded ourselves how hard this whole thing was going to be anyway. You know, we kind of always knew we were dragging this thing up a mountain. So eventually, they kind of, I suppose eventually they watched it. And said, yeah, this isn't too bad actually. And you say it got into South by Southwest and the London Film Festival. Okay, yeah, well, we better take this. That's kind of what happened. And so it went out as part of the Storyville strand on BBC Two. Oh no, sorry, that was it. It was BBC Three. It was actually BBC Three. I won't get boring, but, you know, the machinations of the BBC and however they do it or whatever, they decided that BBC Three, this was right up their alley, and you know, they wanted it as part of their strand on the iPlayer. So it did go out on Storyville. It got acquired by Storyville. Mandy Chang, she was the one who picked it up and said, yeah, we want this. And I think in partnership with BBC Three, they put it on iPlayer. So it aired twice, did it, on TV, Yemi?
So it aired once. So yeah, it went onto iPlayer on BBC Three, and then it went on to BBC Two, I think the first week of December.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was part of it was Storyville, but it was part of the BFI sort of strand with the BBC, where they kind of like, it's emerging voices and emerging sort of like, you know, film talent or whatever. So it was part of a strand of like maybe 10 films.
Emerging for 7 years.
Yeah, emerging for 7 years, exactly. Yeah.
It's like you're an exec by the time it's finished.
Yeah,
you were a director when you started.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, that must have been an amazing feeling that something that you had made off your own back was being aired on BBC Two.
Yeah, like surreal more than anything else. It's just...
That's the word I was going to use. Yeah, it's just surreal. You know. Yeah. But yeah, it felt good. It felt like validation, I suppose.
Yeah.
it's all your friends and family and people
Yeah.
that you've been saying for 6 years, yeah, I'm making this film, and they're just thinking you're a Wally.
Well, right. That was going to be my next question. What did your friends and family think? Because, I mean, surely they were looking at you, dipping your hand in your pocket and paying for flights and hiring kit and all of that and thinking, well, where is this actually headed?
Yeah, I could, I remember like quite vividly sort of like, telling people about the film, like friends, and then sort of like telling them that it's like this ongoing project. And I remember telling one friend, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. He's just like, so what's going on with this thing? Are you ever going to make it? And I don't know, that always kind of spurred me on. Like I've always been somebody that like, likes to prove people wrong. And yeah, it's a ridiculous pipe dream that we're gonna, make this film about Michael Jordan, but like the fact that it's come to fruition. But we just grafted. That's all any of this comes down to. We just grafted, and we were like pretty mad, because to make the film in the way that we made it, you have to have 100% conviction in the idea, and in the process.
Yeah. Actually, one question, which is very sort of, I suppose, nerdy industry, but what did you do about archive when you were funding it yourself? And archive is expensive. So what happened with that, and how did you pay for that? Did you have to?
Yeah, no, we had to pay for it. But there are ways and means, as we all probably know, or perhaps you don't. But we had to fair use a lot of the film, because we weren't going to get we wouldn't get permission to use it. So that's how we got some of the archive. And really, we kind of got lucky that with the first people that we sold it to was Vice TV in the US, and a cable channel. And yeah, they bought it, and we had about 3 or 4 week lead time before it aired. And so we kind of had this window of like, oh, okay, well, we know this money's coming in, and we know we got this amount of time to clear this stuff. Now's the moment, But I mean, that was always a massive stumbling block for producing the film, because clearly it was going to have a lot of archive, so the budget for that was very high, and that was always kind of putting people off. So it was a problem we sort of never really solved until we absolutely had to at the very last minute.
That is so brave. That is so brave. And so effectively you made the film with all this archive in it that you knew you were going to have to pay for if it aired anywhere. And then just hope that, by the money that you would get if it aired, you could pay it. Yeah,
basically, yeah. It's batshit crazy when you put it like that.
Flying by the seat of pants.
Yeah. And sorry, I haven't really mentioned it, but there's a third person who couldn't make it, says yes. Michael Marden, who's our editor, which kind of just connects the dots with some of your other questions, is that, there was a core team of 3 of us, and there was a producer, a director, and an editor, and you're making a doc. So you kind of, with those 3 elements, you sort of just need 3 people who kind of, are just going to keep doing it, and eventually you will finish it somehow. We're proof of that. And but I think that helped with the kind of not giving up. We had a siege mentality. We had 3 people who kind of all really believe in the idea and are kind of going, no, I would watch that. That is definitely something that's decent. So if 2 of you are faltering, there's one guy in the room going, no guys, dig deep, dig deep, we got this. So
in that sense 3 was a good number, right? Because I think 2 of you could have gone, oh yeah, are we really gonna make this work? And the third person can be like, yes we are. So fair play, Michael. And I mean, it was edited brilliantly. I'd love to speak to him about it.
Michael killed it.
Yeah, and in many ways, if one of us, which we did all the time, had to down tools. So if me and Yemi are off on a job, and then Michael has 3 weeks between a job, then he knows, well, perhaps I can open up the Avid and have a little look at the material again, or stuff that we've been talking about. Or if I was between jobs, I could go off and do stuff, or whatever, and vice versa. So it kind of like weirdly moved along, even though it was in stasis.
Yes, yeah, understood. I've got I must remind you guys, actually watching this, do ask questions in the comments, because I've got a couple already, but we'll talk a bit about some of the content now, and then in about 15 minutes we'll take some questions. So could you, I mean, some of the interviews were quite astounding. I would have loved to have been in the room. And some of them are very moving as well, with the families who had lost loved ones who were killed for a pair of sneakers. Were there any interviews, Yemi, that you were completely taken aback with, that you didn't think you would get that sort of material? Anything really surprising that came about when you were interviewing?
No, I don't think there was anything surprising. I think because we sort of had the luxury of time making this film, towards the end, and when certain contributors like confirmed that that they were happy to be in the film, that was always felt like a sort of like a pinch yourself moment. So like Sonny Vaccaro, for instance, who the basketball scout that basically recommended Nike, Jordan to Nike in terms of like endorsing him, that took 2 years to get him to say yes, to agree to be in the film. And then and once we did, he was the guy. He was in the room. He was with MJ during that early period of his career, the formative, sort of quite seminal period. It was incredible to sort of like spend time with him and sort of like just listen to the stories. David Falk is the same, like Jordan's like agent. Again, these are people that, in 2012, 2013, they were on a contributor wish list. And, I didn't know if we were ever going to get them. And like we got David Falk and David Stern, the NBA commissioner who passed away a year ago. We got those people in the last round of shooting, so I think in terms of surprising, it kind of blows my mind that we managed to get those people. In relation to what they said, like, no, nothing surprised me, because I've always been a fan of this subject matter. So I'm quite well read on it, and I've read all of their books, and so I sort of anticipated what they would say because they've said it before in books. But I think that it's different to sort of like be in the room with them and then be able to ask them questions and then have them sort of like respond to that. So I was like a little kid when meeting David Stern, because like he's synonymous with the kind of like evolution and the sort of like the commercialization of the NBA. It's like him, Jordan, and Nike. Those three elements are the thing, that has turned the NBA into the spectacle that we have today. And so he's an incredible marketeer. So it was incredible to sort of spend time with him. And David Falk is, he was Jordan's manager. He sort of like did the Jordan deal. He kind of like did the McDonald's, the Gatorade, all of those incredible, he turned like Michael Jordan into the most marketed like sports athlete on the planet. That he was responsible for those deals. So in terms of surprise, no, but in terms of like pinch yourself moments and being in the room like with those guys, definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine as well that your passion and geekery of the subject would have not only got you in, but got you those brilliant interviews, which is also something I suppose to flag to people who want to make something themselves that they're passionate about. That will get you in, and that will earn respect, because your director can walk off the street and just ask some questions on a piece of paper. You're never going to get the same reaction and answers as if you genuinely know and love the subject.
Completely. I think a lot of these guys are a bit older, and I think when you get these random filmmakers from South London emailing you saying that you're willing to sort of like fly across the world to sort of like talk to them about this contribution that they made to this thing, I think everybody's got an ego and everybody is proud of their achievements. I think they were more than happy to do that, and I think they sensed the enthusiasm as well.
And please don't pull out while I'm halfway across the pond.
Please don't.
Like line up. I guess you had to line up as many as you could, right, in case that happened anyway.
Well, no, I didn't. There weren't substitutes really. Ooh. They were like, we didn't have any substitutes. It was kind of like, we need this person, because we always thought about this story as like, we want to make a definitive film on this subject matter. So there are kind of like a handful of people who are integral to this story, and without them, you can't tell it. And then you know, you can't just go and get a substitute, because then the authenticity is not there. It's like, it's not credible, and people are always going to be asking you questions about, oh, well, why didn't you get that guy? Because he was sort of integral to the story. So we didn't sort of like ever entertain that. It sort of like had to be these people, because they had the authority to speak on this subject. They were either in the room, or they were close enough to the room to sort of like, you know, have the authority to speak on it.
Yeah. Did I read somewhere as well you were a Chicago Bulls fan anyway, growing up in Deptford?
Yeah. Like I had a Chicago Bulls jacket, and, you know, I think I wasn't a massive NBA fan, but, you know, in my world as a 14-year-old in Southeast London, like the NBA was the Chicago Bulls because of, you know, their dominance in the 90s. So yeah, I had an awareness of, you know, what that franchise was and what it meant to people. And yeah, I think it's important to sort of, you know, gravitate to things that resonate with you, especially, you know, as you were a kid, because you can tap into that when you're actually, you know, making the thing that resonated with you when you were a kid, basically. So.
Totally. Was Michael Jordan ever going to be asked? Did you ever want him in it?
Never, because I think, you know, you can't have Michael Jordan as a contributor in a film about, you know, these shoes. It would, you know, he would have to be the beginning, middle and end. So it just I didn't ever see how that was ever going to happen. The only person that we really wanted in it, who we didn't get, was Spike Lee. But I still feel that he has a presence in the film, and we tried really hard, but, you know, he's an Oscar-winning director who's directing films a lot of the time, and, you know, he has a close relationship with Nike, and, you know, they probably say what documentaries he's allowed to sort of like be in, and so on and so forth. So yeah, he's the only person. But yeah, Michael Jordan we never entertained that.
No, okay.
No.
When did the graphics come in? You mentioned that briefly, like it was kind of part of your development, but I think there's almost this I suppose it's not new anymore, but there's a real kind of rebirth of amazing cool graphics and pre-titles, isn't there? Which, you know, do you remember, like, it wasn't that long ago where you used to just get into a program straight away and there might be some funky credits, but not necessarily. Now it's very much a stylized, people love the stylized stuff, and there's like a minute's worth of pre-titles. Where was that process in your minds, and, you know, how did that come about, and who did them?
So yeah, Will, you can chime in on this one. So when I made the short film, that short film was edited by a guy called Will Newell, who I met when I used to work at Sky Sports, and he's an incredible like editor and animator. And during the making of this sort of like project, I'd always kept him sort of updated with what was going on and stuff. And then he sort of like moved to the States with his wife, but we always stayed in contact. So we always knew that that was going to be a huge chunk of the film, just because we knew that we weren't going to be able to afford all the archive. So we had to find a device or find some sort of like tool that allows us to sort of like, you know, just do what archive does, but in a sort of engaging and informative way. And then also, you know, this film has personality, and it's about how you show that on screen. And like, you know, that was always part of it, having sort of like graphics and animation. So
it's it's about a brand all itself, isn't it? So you kind of you've made it your own brand as well. So yeah, Will, what were your thoughts on graphics?
Well, no, yeah, Yemi was always clear, like from day one, oh yeah, I want to use graphics animation. And, you know, we always talked about early on, okay, this can be our get out of jail free card when it comes to archive. You know, and actually when we got to the very late process in the edit, it was kind of, you know, we were pricing things up, and it became that kind of time of like, right, we have to pay for this. You know, it came quite binary decision. Okay, you got 10 seconds of footage here, and that costs a crazy amount of money. Yeah. We just need to cover 10 seconds of our edit. You know, can we find 3 or 4 photographs that does that job? Hand it to Will. He was our special weapon. You know, that's what we used to call him. You know, just said, can you just roll this in glitter and bring it back? And he just was always just kind of blew our minds. But actually, as you were just saying then, it kind of suddenly made me think that, and you'll have to chip in as well, Yem, but that the titles to our film, that was actually a teaser. That was actually part of...
That was part of the short, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was kind of part of our, right, this will smash people in the face, won't it? They'll fund this, which, you know, that basically opened like a 5-minute film, or 5-minute taster of it. And it went on to pretty much, there was a few kind of movements because of archive or whatever, and you know, we had to put in some different credits because, you know, it wasn't our names and stuff, or perhaps I can't really remember. But yeah, what you see there where you watch the start of the film, which part of that kind of Frankenstein of the film, you know, as we were kind of pushing it along. So yeah, it did help us, that getting a lot of rooms and getting a lot of meetings and all the rest of it. And you know, yeah, it's pretty cool that it sits there as the opening and still does the same great job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, well, just super smart and very, very cool. Right, I'm going to look at a couple of questions now because people are chatting away, so that's nice. We're not alone. So let's have a look at Rhiannon Edgell. Hi, Rhiannon. Her questions are, were you given reasons for the initial lack of interest? You know, we spent the first part of this this conversation saying it's very difficult to get a project off the ground when you're self-funding it, however much you believe in it. So did people give you a reason why? Was there kind of a regular one? And if there was, did it change the way you approached the next conversation?
Yeah, I don't. Well, you say this one. I remember a few things, but what do you remember?
Oh, do you? No, go on. Chuck that
no,
in.
I just remember like it was a running joke within, you know, amongst myself and Michael. Like people would ask us like why now? Like so people would see it and say like, why now? Like why does this need to be made now? And then like it would, like, I get just the point. Yeah, I get the point that they're trying to make, but it just we got that so much, and it was just. But then you could use that for anything. Like why now for anything? Do you know what I mean? It's. So that was one that frustrated us, but also made us giggle quite a lot. But no, I think there were a number of reasons, like money and sort of like sometimes other projects towards the end of the process, like, you know, I'll let Will chime in on this one, but, you know, we got quite far down the road with some money, and, you know, we were always conscious of the fact that no one else had sort of told this story in this way. And then there was another film that sort of like emerged at the end of 2016 or 2017, and that sort of like had a knock-on effect for, you know, potential financing. And yeah, so there were a number of reasons, but yeah, Will, you can elaborate on some of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, probably like all of the things that anyone gets told, like, you know, it's everyone's looking for a reason to say no, aren't they? You know, we got told it was niche. You know, and to answer your question from earlier, are we happy now? Like, yeah, I'm happy. You know, I've seen it getting picked up in territories all around the world, you know, and people told me it was a niche. It's like, I don't think a billion, anyway. So, yeah, we got told it was niche. You go, archive, how are you going to clear the archive?
Yeah.
You know, like literally we sort of got told every reason why you wouldn't make the film. You know, and Michael was always, you know, like if you listen to these people, if you no one would ever do anything if you kind of, you know, basically if any project you've got, whatever the kind of naysaying is, unless, you know, you've got to be realistic, if whatever you're making is not commercial. But that was the one thing, that was always the frustrating things, like this is commercial, this is a commercial doc. We always knew that. So we just, we kind of knew we had an ace in the hole. So that was quite. But yeah, I mean, there's a bigger and longer, you know, I could waffle on for ages about how hard it is to produce and get something away. I think when you started the Zoom call, I thought something that popped in my head that was interesting, reminded me, was just the hard thing about an independent doc is that you're trying to make something that is sort of, basically if you go to TV channels, they want to make like a 60-minute, you know, or like whatever, 55-minute thing, which isn't a feature doc, you know, and so you end up, a lot of people making a doc and then they cut it down and it goes out on TV anyway. But to go and get money and to get it commissioned and to get it up, you sort of have to go to these people that deal with an hour, and they don't know, you know, especially as first-time director, first-time producer, you know, whatever, there's no reason a TV channel is going to turn around and go, oh yeah, we'll give you an hour and 15 or something, just go off and make your thing. And it's not going to happen anyway. But even then, it's kind of a bit weird. So you're a bit between the cracks. And then if you go to the independent world, I had to learn a lot of this on my feet, and while we're making, so you go to markets, you go to, you know, is that it's just really hard to get money for docs because they, you know, it can be hard to make money out of them. So it's sort of, you know, it's a bit of push and pull. Like people will tell you every reason under the sun as to why they're not going to risk hundreds of thousands of pounds on your documentary. And I think another sort of final point with that, so I won't waffle on too much, is that what's different with sort of setting up a feature, a narrative feature, is that you can put a package together there. You can go, well, I've got Brad Pitt, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, well, he gets bums on seats, you know, they can sort of see that through line. Whereas when you got a doc, it's like, well, I got this guy Yemi, and in his head is like 30 years of Air Jordans. It's going to be great, you know. And they kind of go, how am I going to get that money back?
So it's complicated, isn't it? And you can see everyone's arguments. I can see yours in terms of it's just brilliant, we want to make it. I can see theirs in terms of, but is it going to sell? You know, it's complicated. And like you said, first-time director and producer of a feature. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, but we didn't really get, a lot of the no's. It was pretty, like, when you look back, it's rubbish, some of the stuff that, you know, where it was coming from or the angles, you know.
Well, it's also easier to say no, isn't it? Like,
it
is easier for people to say no, because yes means quite a lot of hard work and a bit of and probably quite a lot of gamble. So I get that. It doesn't make it any better for you.
And to kind of answer the second part of the question was like, did it change the way we kind of attacked it? Is sort of no, really, because I think we were just as desperate every time, and we kind of just attacked it in the same way. It's like, hey, here's this story, it's never been told before, you know. It's like, and something we learned later on was, you know, this thing we keep coming back to is like, find people who are champions of your project. A few times we got sort of seduced by, wow, there's this guy or this company, and you're thinking, this is where we want to be. And because they're good and whatever, they could see we had something, but they weren't really in it.
Yeah,
you know?
they didn't love it.
They didn't love it, but you're just bedazzled, going, oh, well, you know, this guy's whoever, or this company is looking at it, so let's not hassle them. Let's wait another month or two, you know, and they'll watch our rough cut and all the rest of it. And actually, you know, I think we learned quite far down the process. Do you know what? Finding the people that, you know, when you see the light bulb go off in their eyes, the same as you, that's kind of who you need to find, and just keep attacking them with your same pitch, basically. But find that person who will actually dig deep, who will actually sort of want to go off and get it done and finished with you.
I think that is fantastic advice. That really stands out. You say,
it took me 7 years to learn that. There you go. That one's
but now
free. It's so obvious as well.
Now you've imparted it to many other people like that. But no, I can imagine you get starry-eyed at the big names, the big companies, the bit of interest, flattering and all that. But actually, go with the guys who believe in you, and, you know, big or small. Sophie Howard. Hello, Sophie. Thanks for your question. She wants to know whether you had any production management on board.
We did.
You guys?
Bits and bobs, I had to do a lot of that. And anyone who knows me through TV is that I'm not a production manager. I'm that guy who's like, how do you set up Google Chrome on my computer? I'm just rubbish. And so I had to dig deep and do a lot of it. We did have a line producer. When we had a little bit of money and it was crunch time and stuff, you know, a lot of that happened along the way, like say with archive, say with line producing and that kind of, when we really needed help, or we needed, you know, the cogs were kind of going too slowly, like we would have to find little bits of money and chuck it, you know, to keep the machine going. So we did have some production management, I would say, but
more consultancy when you really needed it.
Yeah, like, can you come in and, you know, and actually quite early on, that was one of the first things I did, and we chucked a little bit of money at, because I knew that wasn't my skill, and, you know, I knew we needed some budgets knocked up, and we needed, you know, to get our house in order a little bit. So we did that then, and then at the back end, we did a lot of. But Yemi, you booked most of his flight. You know, it's like I just give him the card, he'd book his flights and sort of sort it. So he production managed himself as well. You know, when it came to shoots, pretty much mostly that was you.
I hope you were risk assessing like a fiend.
Yes, of course, yes.
I was.
Yeah,
It was all fun and games.
Yeah, but I mean, these projects, you know, they are just get on and do it, aren't they? You know, and within
100%.
your own parameters. If you want it to happen, you've got to make it happen.
Exactly.
So no, in answer to your question, Sophie, no, they did not really have a production manager. Fair play. And then I have a lovely message here, which does kind of end in a question from Neil Henson. I have to read it. It's so nice. Hi, I've just stumbled across this Zoom. Very interesting. I'm an archive producer. I saw the film listed at Rio Cinema, but didn't get the chance to watch it. Can't wait to watch it on iPlayer now. Your comments about clearing the archive until the last minute just made my heart stop. Very brave. I've got a few script ideas myself that I've been putting off, and I've been thinking I should tackle this lockdown. So hearing your tenacity to make something you believe in is giving me a kick to start it. Well done. I'm off to watch it. So
Amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
go
fair
for it,
play. And then he
Yeah.
does actually ask, what's your next project and do you need an archive producer?
We've spoken
So
about
what
stuff.
are you up to?
We've spoken about projects, but nothing has materialized as yet. We've got a few things that we're thinking about, but we're just sort of enjoying the film being out there a little bit. It's really surreal to have, worked on something for so many years and then for it to come out in the midst of a global pandemic. It's a really, really weird feeling. But then sort of still have a little bit of traction. Like we had a theatrical release, like I think in that window just before the second lockdown. So that was weird. We got quite fortunate with that, and friends and family were able to come out, and we had preview screenings, and then we sort of like had a cinema run that lasted about 8 days or something. So
that is so cool. Please tell me you got to drink champagne at your own screening.
I don't think I did. I never actually watched the film with an audience because I was always so nervous of like sitting down with people and watching it. So I normally wait outside and then sort of like poke my head in. But then like before we went into lockdown, my local sort of like everyman was showing it, and I just basically said, I'm gonna go and like watch it. So I basically went to the everyman, and then like there was nobody there, and it was like perfect closure because I just got to see it in the cinema by myself, and it was a really cool feeling.
That is quite a moment. I mean, there's not many people who work in mainstream telly who get to go and watch something that they've made in the cinema like that. And especially your first thing, that is amazing. That is totally fair play.
It was really cool, to do that.
Oh, please tell me you invited your friend who kept asking you whether or not it was really going to happen.
He came. He came to one of the friends and family screening, and he loved it, and it was great. Like he's got a thank you in the credits, so it's all good.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to give it 5 more minutes, guys. So any more questions, chuck them, and I'll direct them to Will and Yemi. But in the meantime, Will, have you got any tell me your kind of favourite moment, whether that was kind of working on it or a light bulb thing, and also a kind of a really low moment.
Well, I could tell you the low moment because that was like we said, we'd got to a point where we had about a 45-minute cut of the film. So we're fairly advanced in it, and by this time there'd been lots of ups and downs, and we were trying to hook an exec basically. We had someone who's very experienced and was very much interested. What sat there in the edit suite with us, watched the sort of 50-minute or whatever it was cut, and was like, you've definitely got something here, which is like we say, is you go, great, this is what you want to hear. Next thing's like, okay, you're going to help us or what? And so we sort of danced around with him for a little while and his company, and then they pretty much said, okay, we want to do this, we want to make this with you. And then it all became about money, how much you want, blah blah blah, and we sort of, they kept bring your budget down, keep taking a bit out of your wage line, okay. So anyways, around 300 grand, we felt like if we can get 300 grand, we could just get this thing done. If at that point, if they'd said, we'll give you 50 grand, we'd said, fine, let's just get it done. Let's get it out of our lives. yeah, so 300 grand is pretty much there on the table. And, or, you know, they said like, yeah, okay, we found financier. This looks like it's all going to happen. And then I think perhaps it was an email that they just sent to like all of us, or sent it to, with Yemi on CC or whatever. And yeah, they got wind of this other film which touched on, you know, like a similar subject, and just kind of, oh, actually, yeah, we've totally got cold feet, and pretty much like no phone call, no nothing, just like in this email, oh yeah, it's totally off, you know. And it was like, I think it was literally less than 48 hours. It was like, right, after 4 years of dragging this thing, I think we found 300 grand, you know. I think, you know, I've walked around film markets, I've walked around everywhere, going, hey, we need like hundreds of thousands of pounds, and then someone just shoving a custard pie in my face. And it was like, no, it's actually happening. And then, yeah, 48 hours later, it was just gone.
Oh, that is cruel.
They were gone, and it was just a dead end, and the whole film was just, you know, in a dead end. So that was a bullshit moment. That was a moment that was even worse than when, you know, South by Southwest got cancelled, like, you know, a week before our world premiere. That actually was even worse, because at least South by Southwest, we'd finished the film, and, you know, that was just a complete sucker punch. So yeah, and then probably the best moment was probably finding out that we got into South by Southwest, because that was, you know, that was the moment we felt like that same feeling like with this company before, like, oh great, we're made men, like they finally let us in the clubhouse, you know, we're in. But at that point, it was, you know, again in hindsight, much more genuine, because we'd come to them. There's a thing, the British Council do screenings, and we'd gone through that, which is open to anyone. So if you've got, you know, a cut, you can basically just go through the British Council, pay them a bit of money, and they fly people, festival programmers in, stick them in a BFI screen, and, you know, whatever. So yeah, so that the programmer Janet Pearson sat there and watched our film on a big screen and said afterwards, you need to apply to our festival. So that was a pretty, you know, that felt great. That wasn't us or me or whoever going and begging and hustling. It was like someone watched our film and was a champion, you know. It was like,
and loved
this
it.
This is for us. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, surely we're going to ride this home. And at that point, the film wasn't finished, like I said, because there was so clearances. It was still way off. But at that point, it felt like, okay, surely this is, you know, we've just grabbed on the thing that's gonna take us, surely.
Yeah. No, that's, oh God, what a roller coaster as well from those moments you've just outlined. And Yemi, what about same for you? Low point, high point?
Oh, there's too many low points. Yeah, I think.
Comedy moment. What about comedy moment then?
Comedy moment.
What about the time you flew to the wrong city?
Oh yeah,
that's when we needed a production manager.
yeah, that was pretty bad actually. I don't even remember when that was Portland, Maine, and I went to sort of, I don't know, it was bad.
Did you go to Portland, Oregon or something?
I went to Oregon, yeah. Yeah, because I was booking my flights by myself, and I'd like literally do it the night before I was meant to go. And I just remember when I did that, I was in Chicago and I had to sort of like go to Maine, and I found this flight. I was like, oh, it's really cheap. And it was really cheap because it was the wrong city, and the contributor was called. I got to the airport and the contributor called me, and there was a time difference. I was just like, look, I just had to fess up. I was like, look, I've made a massive mistake and I've come to the wrong place, and I'm going to have to pick this up with you. And yeah, to his credit, I did actually interview him, like, you know, I think a few years later, stayed in touch. And,
wow. So you couldn't even reschedule it for like the next day?
I couldn't reschedule it. This is how tight our schedules were. It was literally, we had time and money to fly to a city, do the interview, and then have to fly back, because that's all we could afford. So
oh my God, so landing there, that was just like absolutely dreadful.
It messed up everything.
And all that money down the drain.
Yeah. I remember him calling me. I remember you calling me and just being like, yeah, you know. And the thing is like, look, you're in the field, you know, you need someone going, just forget it. Just, you know, get to the next one, smash the next one.
Yeah.
but put it down the phone like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think finding out about South by, I think that was the moment, because I think we'd always, every filmmaker sort of like dreams of getting into a festival, and like, you know, we kind of, to get into South by, which is like one of the biggest sort of independent film festivals in North America, is just, yeah, it just blew our mind. So that was definitely the highlight.
The highlight, yeah, incredible.
And actually, that helped us get a sales agent. That helped to
Yeah.
kind of close all of that,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Which kind of shows you
it's
how hard it
validation.
is. Yeah, I mean, I've had someone contact me today, and you know, and they're making a doco, and they're like, how, you know, need to speak to a sales agent, and it's kind of like, I don't. You sort of have to finish the film and get into an international festival for them to really care.
Isn't that mad? But I mean, it's now completely your calling card, though. You know, that is, yeah, you've done it, you've achieved it, you love it, it's doing well, and now surely that is proof of what you guys can achieve.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think just the last thing, like one of the reasons why we wanted to make this film is because we were super passionate about the story, but you know, we'd always wanted to make a feature film between us, you know, and we also knew that no one was miraculously going to come along and give us a pot of money and say, like, go and make this feature film without interference about anything you sort of like want. So we knew that we would have to sort of like go through the pain of making a film, but then at the end of the journey, we've got a film that sort of like says that we, you know, is evidence that we can sort of like tell a coherent, entertaining, sort of, you know, engaging story. So hopefully off the back of that, we're able to make more films. And that was always in my head, you know, the goal, you know, to make the film obviously and make the film in the way that we want. But I think the real work starts, you know, like we want to make a second film and a third film, and, you know, want to have careers making films, you know?
Yeah, well, fair play. It's a pretty good guinea pig, you know. It's like a bit better than just, you know, a little development, like, this is what we can do. You've like majorly, well, you're an iPlayer. I can't believe it. It's so great. I think the last question actually seems very relevant to sort of finish up on, actually. So Emma Grace has asked, is there anything you wished you'd known when you were starting out with a project?
Oh my God.
I mean, you've learned a lot, but is there kind of any one like nugget of advice, I suppose, if you were somebody else now doing what you guys want to do, you know, from now tomorrow, what would you say was like a very useful thing to know?
What?
Oh, Will.
Yeah, while you're thinking of something, I mean, I've got a quick and easy, like, stock answer to that. Which, you know, I try and think, because there's like a million things, like, but I mean, I've just felt with this and the other film I've made is just you have to get started. You just have to get started, because it's gonna take longer than you think. You know, like the guy who was earlier was talking about the archives, like, yeah, just in whatever capacity, whether it's like you've got an idea but you've never written it down, or like write it down, because then it becomes something. It becomes a thing on a bit of paper, and it just, like, you know, our film's almost proof of that. You can just keep building. You could keep building and building and building. But whatever you feel, you know, going straight back to Yemi, right to the start. Oh, well, I wanted to do this before I was 30, so I thought, you know, I'd better start making it like 2 years before he was 30 or whatever. And it's like, well, this might end up taking 6-7 years. And whoever's, you know, like wanting to make anything, you know, it might end up taking. I mean, you know, I've met other people that, yeah, they made a doc for 9 years, 10 years, you know? So if you've got an idea, you know, you have to get comfy shoes and know it's going to be a long walk and get going, because, yeah, you know, you don't want to muck around for 2 years thinking about it and then take 2 years to make it, and then it's like 12 years to make it.
I'm trying really hard not to say the Nike tagline that works for that. Yemi, anything else you can add to that?
I think, yeah, just an extension of like what Will said. You just have to have 100% conviction in your idea that, you know, this is, because you're going to get a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of people, you know, almost making you question why you're doing it. And I think you just have to have a lot of, you know, self-belief in yourself and in the idea. And I think then, you know, get your comfy shoes and just, you know, just keep going. I think that's the main thing, you know. Just have a lot of faith in the idea and in yourselves as well.
Very inspiring. and comfy shoes all round, to be
Comfy
honest.
shoes, yeah.
With lockdown, you know,
Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
needs several pairs of those.
Yeah.
Well, look, I just want to say congratulations again. Like
Thank you.
I really loved it, love watching it, and I love the story behind it, and I think it's very inspiring. So I really appreciate your time. It's been so nice to just chat it all through very informally, and thanks ever so much for joining in, everyone, on Facebook. For those of you who've joined later, I saw quite a few people pop on partway through this conversation. It will be going onto our website, which is talentedpeople.tv, and we've got a section for the TP sessions, we call them, and you can find previous ones which are making ofs, or you know, other industry chats, and they're always fun and informative. Some are super important as well. We did a session on Black Lives Matter and disability in TV, and you know, we just like to talk about important things as well as fun things that are going on in the industry right now. So really appreciate it, guys. If you watching have not sent us your CV, including Neil, the archive producer, we always need great people. Our link is on our jobs board. It just says send us your CV as a kind of job post. So please do that. And yes, stay safe and well, everybody. And we will see you very soon for another live session. So thanks so much, Will and Yemi, and go and watch One Man and His Shoes if you haven't seen it already.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Bye.
Cheers.
See you soon.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.